I'm Michael Freeman. I was assistant curator here for 7 years and then I became curator and retired in 2012.
So I'm Carrie Canham and I'm the curator of Ceredigion Museum. The theatre was built, or it was opened in 1905. It was built by David Phillips and it was a variety theatre, and there were operatic performances and theatrical performances, but also there were political rallies here and Eisteddfods and all sorts of other things. It remained a theatre up until 1933 when Olive and Harry Gale took it over and converted it into a cinema with talkies, which was the big thing at the time.
Possibly was one of the better cinemas in town, but it was described as a free pit, as many were. And it showed live acts between the films. It was the other way round to the theatre for a short while, and was very popular until the lease ran out, in fact, in 1977, when the whole building reverted to the council. So I did go to the Theatre Museum in London to see if I could find out a bit about the companies that came here, because they were the companies that travelled all around Britain. They would come here for 3 days, get on a train and go to another theatre and perform there, and then go all the way around the country. And I wanted to know about them and how they worked and a bit about their history. And that was very, very difficult too. So there were 1 or 2 famous people that we think performed here when they were not famous, but we've never been able to find out any more about that because their names weren't highlighted in the programmes. So Lloyd George stood on stage and talked about the Education Act. Emmeline Pankhurst stood on stage twice talking about votes for women. And I think it's really exciting to think this building was absolutely full of people who had strong views about those things.
My earliest memories of the Coliseum go back to the mid-1950s. I used to love coming to the cinema here. It struck me as a place of magnificent opulence, so this is an excellent way of preserving it. And I remember coming either with my mother alone or sometimes with a treat with my mother and father, and we saw such films as Genevieve with Kenneth More in it, and some of the famous films of the 1950s. So I have very fond memories of coming to this cinema.
It certainly didn't look like, you know, a modern cinema's got a big screen all the way around. It was just a screen in front of the stage, and you just watched the film on that. Yeah. And the other thing, of course, it was smoky because people would smoke, and so there was always fog of smoke in it. Yeah.
Ceredigion Museum, like many museums in the UK, are facing quite a hard time at the moment with austerity. So our future plans are all around the sustainability of the museum. The next big project we have planned is to look at the collection, to do what they call a significance assessment on the collection, to make sure that we're looking after the right things for the right reasons, and also to look at the gaps in the history of Ceredigion that we might have in the collection as well.
Nowadays, the curators have to spend nearly all their time justifying their existence and getting money and conforming to what the funders say they should do. That means the curators are no longer having the time to do research, as I did. And I would really like to see more put into museums to enable the curators to do the research. But the important thing is that the collections are being preserved, and that's their priority at the moment. And so they will be there for future generations to study in more detail.
My favourite item within the museum, I think, it has to be the cinema projector that we saw on the way upstairs, because I well remember that flickering projector from up high, and I can remember the little signals that came up on the film when it was time to change the reel. None of that you get these days, and that for me captures something from my past and helps to bring back a lot of memories.
Well, I think it has to be the building, actually. I always wanted to work in a theatre, and I did in the end, but of course not quite in the way that I'd hoped. But there are so many objects in this collection that I really like, and I couldn't easily identify any single item other than the structure.
Well, I have been asked that before, and I always say that's like being asked which of your children is your favourite. I don't think I can say that there is one particular thing that's my favourite thing. I think if I was really pushed, I'd probably say the building, because it is so much at the heart of what Ceredigion Museum is. It has always throughout its history been a place that tells stories. I think that's what museums do really well.
But people like to know their past is being preserved, whether they come here or not. They like to know that somebody is looking after their past in one way or another, and that's what this museum does.